Hello and welcome to Talking Politics. Now today we'll be talking about the refugee crisis, and German Chancellor Angela Merkel says they're expecting 1.5 million refugees into Europe and into Germany, and Germany cannot handle the refugee crisis alone. So we'll be talking a lot about that and a Conservative Party conference that is coming up. It is now 24 hours, 7-day-a-week GP service. I have here a guest in the studio, Lara Ayodeji, who is a consultant solicitor for local authorities, and she assists and advises councillors on politically sensitive matters. Lara, you're very welcome to our studios.
Wilma. Thank you.
And I also have Brian Portman, who is our political correspondent. Brian, you're very welcome to our studios.
Good afternoon, Wilma. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Now, the number of people seeking asylum in Germany this year will be as high as 1.5 million, almost double the previous estimate, and that is the latest report from German media. Chancellor Angela Merkel says Germany alone cannot solve the migrant crisis.
The refugee issue keeps us especially busy these days, and I recall once again that Germany cannot solve the problem on its own.
Lara, you're a consultant solicitor for local authorities, and you actually advise councillors on politically sensitive matters. This is one that is pretty sensitive. Should Britain take these refugees? We're expecting 1.5 million of these in Germany alone.
I think it's a good question, Wilma. And the truth of the matter is, last time I looked, Britain was a Christian country, and therefore Britain's policies on refugees should really reflect that, to be good to their neighbour. And yes, Britain should take in refugees. How many? I can't say. I think the most important thing, and I think the government has got it right, is taking refugees from the refugee camps. I think that's so important. It deters people from making that dangerous journey from Turkey into Europe. It also helps deter traffickers assisting people and making a profit off people's problems and crises. And so I think the government is great in doing that. I think another thing is, a lot of people think help just means taking in the refugees. No. We can help them by helping the actual camps that they're in, help the process of the asylum seekers so that it's quicker, it's easier, it's more comfortable for them, and also help the countries that are assisting. Lebanon has taken so many people in. We can help them, we can ask them, what can we do to help you to make the situation easier for you and the process quicker and easier. Help Turkey, but also help Turkey's government to prosecute those who are actually trafficking people. I think that's important as well. And finally, I think Britain can also help by talking with the Arab nations around Syria and places where are having problems, so that we can actually stop this migration and actually help their country and rebuild their country. So yeah, Britain should take in refugees, but not just taking refugees, help in other ways.
What do you think, Brian?
Although I agree Britain should take in refugees, as Lara said about our Christian heritage, a Christian foundation, we should try to look after people that are in need. But people would say, flip to the other side. There are always the arguments from Conservative Tory backbenchers about how this country is full, we can't take any more people. All these people coming in here that have a different culture to us, so they're diluting the national spirit, the national identity so much. But as you say, these people, they do need help. And it's whether we can help them here or whether we can help them there, where they came from or where they're coming to, or somewhere in between. But when they're in transition, shall we say, they left their countries for a reason, they're coming here for a reason. Either one of those 2 points where we need to help them, just pick them up when they're in migrant camps in Calais or throughout in southern Greece or through Hungary or Serbia or Bosnia, that won't really help, because that's just treating them rather than curing them, if you will, Wilma. So, you know, Lara's point about helping the governments in, say, Lebanon, you were saying, in Syria, and the places where the people are coming from, in the refugee camps there. They're in refugee camps, something is causing them to leave and look for a better life. If we improve their lives there, there will be less of an incentive to do that, Wilma.
Well, David Cameron has said we will be taking 20,000 refugees, but only from the refugee camps. You have worked so much with councils and councillors. What do you think the local distribution is going to be here in the UK? And what do you think the reactions of the councils is going to be when we talk about integrating them? I mean, if we're talking about 20,000, we're looking about 20 to 100,000, 20 to 100 for each council. How are we going to distribute that?
I think it's important to acknowledge that, first of all, Britain does have crises in their housing crises, and there's some places in Britain that are a lot of people there. It's popularly denselated. And so when we distribute, we have to consider where to distribute and whether they will actually integrate as well. And I think in relation to that, a lot of councillors are so eager to help. Funny enough, they are eager to help. After seeing the tragedy they saw with Alan Kurd washed up on the Turkish beach, people are eager to help. But at the same time, they're concerned about things that are happening to them and their children. Will there be enough houses? Will there be enough, the NHS system? And so the councillors have a tough job to balance that in. But let's not forget that this is a great opportunity for the church to get stuck in and to show the true love of Christ and to get stuck in and say, look, we can help. A great example was in Birmingham. A church there, a Muslim gentleman who was an immigrant came to them and said, look, I need to find a mosque. I couldn't find anything, funny enough. Could we use your church? A hall. And the church was happy to do so. When that immigrant left and went back to his country, he saw Christians were being persecuted. And what did he do? He stood up for them. He helped the Christians because Christians helped him back here in the UK. So it's so important to know that it's our opportunity to lend a helping hand, but to change people's views about Britain, about Christianity, and also to integrate them and show them our ways of life. So when they eventually go back to their country, they are well equipped, they can rebuild their system, they can bring in the great British qualities and characteristics that we have here that make Britain so great.
Are we thinking of them going back to their country? But let's take a look at what you talked about, which means churches and local communities should also take the responsibility of helping the refugees and the migrants. It shouldn't just be the councils and the government. No. That's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. I think churches were supposed to be about people, about helping people, and churches need to stand up. This is a great opportunity to say we're here, we're still here, and we're willing to help. And if we do that, we can really show the love of Christ and possibly take a little strain off the government and councils, and obviously disperse ideologies that are really not there.
So, Brian, local communities and churches should bear some of these responsibilities.
I think they should. I mean, Lara made a very interesting point about the impression that people who migrate here and then possibly go home again have of England. And you see pictures of the people in refugee camps in Calais, the most near and distant example of it. What an impression are they going to have of England, of us standing with the gates up and our spears in hand, sort of poking them away all the time. They're going to see us as heartless because we can see them there living in destitution and we're not prepared to help. The impression they have of France must be far worse, obviously. But they're looking towards us because we're the place they want to come, because they see people they know here, because England's become a very diverse place recently. And what Lara was saying about distribution, the places they most likely want to go are places where there are more people from their nation states. So if it's in London and the big urban areas, far more diverse populations. They may know people who are here, family or friends, they've got links here. They know where people can find work in the informal economy, which in urban settlements is far greater opportunities for that. So it's what can we do? We need to find a solution, and then people do come here, we need to integrate them into the British way of life. And again, that comes down, I think, to numbers. This was the argument of 10, 15 years ago when Tony Blair and New Labour suddenly let in this big influx of people migrating here to work and live. And a lot of councils were very sensitive about how many we could take and integrate all at once. And certainly with, I think it's 2 million refugees in the Middle East, 1.7 million in Turkey, there's a lot more waiting to travel out of places where they are feeling repressed and under danger. They want to move to safer places for themselves and their families to find work. We've got to decide on numbers, if nothing else, as well.
Do you think they will ever be willing to go back?
If they find good opportunities here, Wilma, and that they can find sufficient society around them of their close-knit culture society where they can integrate and they feel safe. Do they want to go back to near war zones? I personally wouldn't.
When the country is rebuilt?
When the country is rebuilt, yes, I can see that happening. But when the country is rebuilt, Wilma, you're looking at decades more than weeks, months and years.
Lara, you're a consultant solicitor, and one of the sections you handle is immigration. You deal with lots of immigration issues now. Why are people so desperate to come to the UK?
I think the media would like us to think that it's our benefit system and our benefit culture. And yes, some people want to come here, like some British people want to scrounge on the benefit system. But Britain, we shouldn't think about why did Britain want to come here, people want to come to Britain. Thank God people want to come to Britain. We have light, electricity, we have safety. Our government is not trying to kill us. We should be thankful that we have a place that is safe. Now the question is, can we take in so many people? Granted, we can't take in everybody. No, we can't. But what we can do is to try and help. And as I said before, helping doesn't mean taking in everybody. It means actually lending a helping out to other neighbours and other neighbouring countries to assist them. But
that's actually David Cameron's point, because he's saying we'll take in 20,000, but we'll give aid to the countries who actually want to take more, like Germany.
And I think that's a fantastic idea. It definitely is. And I think we should run by it. I think David Cameron has shown true leadership in this, where people have been up and down in their thoughts and their opinions. The media's been swaying. 1 minute they're feeding into the prevailing fear of immigration and migration. The next minute they're showing real concern about it when they're showing Alan Kurdi. And now we're back again to, again, fear of immigration. David Cameron has really shown great leadership and been sturdy in his approach. He hasn't reacted, he's just acted. And I think that's what we need in this time where there is a lot of crisis and a lot of upheaval, that we need a strong leader who can take difficult decisions and to consider his own people, Britain, but also consider other people. It's a big point that I need to really make is that we're so concerned about ourselves, but if we look at Solomon, for example, he asked for wisdom, not for himself, but he asked for wisdom so that he can govern God's people. And because of that, his selflessness, God blessed him. How does that play out in today? Well, today...
Solomon in the Bible.
In Solomon in the Bible. Well, how does it play out today? Well, in history, Britain has a great history of taking in migrants, and it hasn't broken the economy, it hasn't sapped the world, their economy, people haven't scrounged off that benefit system, as people say. So Britain has been blessed by helping other people. In fact, a lot of people
so we should keep helping.
We should keep on helping. We should really keep on helping.
So is immigration a drain on our system?
I think most people think that it is, but actually Britain needs immigration. Its economy thrives on it.
Brian is already shaking his
No, I agree with you that it's not a drain on our system. There was an article in the Guardian this week or last week, end of last week, saying that EU migrants, at least, they're a net contributor to the UK economy. But in the media and in all the films you see and reporting, you see, it doesn't look that way.
Exactly.
And with migrants who are non-EU migrants, such as the people we're talking about now from the Near and Middle East, how well are they a drain on our system? The sooner we can let them work, the sooner they will work and let us and pay us taxes.
So you think the problem is that the media is actually reporting it wrongly?
I do. I think the media is taking a certain view on this. We always hear about how it's the right-wing press, the right-wing media. But I think it's like, for instance, the people in the refugee camps in Calais. You see these top-down views of all this swarming mass of people dependent who don't have much. They're completely barren and wasted type people. Look at all these people trying to get in. You never see a ground level camera of people in small groups talking and sharing tea together and showing some kind of solidarity. We're always shown images that I believe, give me anyway, a worse impression than they need to. We don't see the human side of it, we just see the numbers. And I think that doesn't play very well on the television screens at home, Alma.
So we should keep taking in people, definitely.
I think we should take in people. The question is how much, and I think we need to go back and look at our books and look at the figures and look at what we can do and how many people we can take in. But in relation to, I think it's really important to note that, immigration isn't a drain. We need to stress that, because, as I said, media has portrayed that, and there's so many fantastic people. Look at Michael Mark, who's actually was a refugee, and he's the founder of one of the founders of Marks and Spencers, that actually employ over 75,000 people. We've got Pasha Kundaki, who's a curry business, who employs about another 75,000 people, who puts about £4.5 billion into the economy. Are they really a drain, or are they actually providing work for British people? They're boosting the economy. So yes, there's some people who do drain the economy, but it's not always immigrants, and there's some people who do put into the economy. And we just need to have a balance and a true view of what really is going on.
So what has been the problem with the way the media reported the refugee crisis in Syria and the problems in Calais?
I think, as I said earlier on, the first problem is it's inconsistency. 1 minute it's a problem with the Calais, then they're pulling our heartstrings with the unfortunate picture of Alan Cardi, and then again it's the Calais situation. It's that inconsistency. And as I said before, we have a government who's been strong and not been, I would say, pushed or coerced into reacting. I think another problem is the fact that they're lumping everybody under the term migrant crisis, when in fact we have some people who might be economic migrants or asylums or refugees. I think it's so important for the media to tell the truth and educate people, because there's different laws and there's different outcomes for each of these three people. And I think finally the point is terming somebody a migrant crisis, first of all, demonises people, and therefore you become very desensitised to them and their circumstances. The real tragedy and the real crisis is people in 2015 have to leave their home, have to leave their countrymen, have to leave their family to take a dangerous journey to get to safety. That's the true crisis there, not calling people migrant and their crisis.
Yes, it's again, it's how it's portrayed. It's a migrant crisis, that's what we're told. It's not how we've come to understand it. We only understand it through the media. And if the media only tell us one story, how is anyone here going to know that? Because we don't have any direct contact with these people. Again, it's something I said one of the other weeks, Wilma, it's learning things by proxy. You rely on what people tell you to be able to take an opinion on it. And as you were saying, Lara, about the types of migrant, we have, in the media says migrant, one type, they're migrant. But as you say, there could be people coming here to find better work, better money. They're economic migrants. Should they be treated the same as asylum seekers, which have a particular definition in UN mandates? They shouldn't. They should be processed differently between the things. But these people in Calais, or wrong to concentrate just on that, but do they have documents? How can we tell? How do we process, a horrible word to use, but that's the one that's used. How do we process people fairly if they've got no documents? How do we decide who's and who's what? That is, I think, one of the greatest challenges the Home Office faces, because to have the trust of the British people, they need to be able to do that as we think is fair and as we think is correct. And if they don't come up with a good, reliable way of judging that, then we're going to have very great difficulty in trusting them and voting for them to do anything similar again.
So you were saying the UN should have a mandate where we have a statement defining what a migrant is, and not just that, but the different types of migrants and refugees.
After the wars of the early 20th century, the UN in 1945 and the European Convention in 1995, bang, that was a horrible thing. We don't want that to happen again. But so all of the people who are fleeing persecution from Hitler's regime, from Stalin, and from the other right-wing regimes at that time, they were considered asylum seekers when they fled those countries for their personal safety, when their governments would kill people, disappear people, as they used to say. A lot of these people, they live in difficult circumstances back in their home countries in Syria, in Lebanon, so on and so forth. There's a lot of destitution, their houses may be bombed and so on and so forth. Are their lives at risk from being eliminated by the state? Will the state come and kill those people? Will they oppress those people specifically? It's difficult to tell, Wilma, because again, if they don't have papers, how do we know who they are? How can we trace that back to their state persecution? Some of these people will be coming just because of greater life chances in the Western Europe than there are in Eastern Europe and in the Near East. If you want something better, you can move from it. Same as in this country, people move from up north down to London because of the greater job opportunities. Twist it round, it's similar to going across Europe and to the Near East. People want better opportunities for themselves and their families, so they're moving to try and find that. Are they asylum seekers? Not really.
Well, Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond says Russian support for Syria's Assad will drive all opposition groups into the hands of Islamic State.
Now, we have shown that we have the reach, the capability and the determination to hunt you down. We will defeat you and your vile ideology, no matter how long it takes. And we will work with anyone who wants to join us in this struggle, including Russia. But if Russia wants to fight ISIL, it cannot at the same time support Assad. Because Assad, with his barrel bombs and his chemical weapons and his wholesale slaughter of civilians, is the recruiting sergeant for ISIL. And Russian support for him will drive the opposition in Syria into the arms of ISIL, strengthening the evil that Putin says he wants to defeat.
But a Russian military official says about 600 mercenaries in Syria have left their positions and are heading for Europe.
Our intelligence witnesses that the fighters are leaving the areas under their control. Panic and desertion has started in their ranks. About 600 mercenaries have left their positions and are trying to escape to Europe.
Brian, this is pretty interesting. Hammond says Russia cannot bomb IS targets and at the same time support Assad. Russia is saying they have made more progress in 72 hours than America did in 13 months. And they have reports that about 600 mercenaries have left Syria and are heading for Europe. So when they arrive in places like Calais or in Germany, how can we tell who is who?
This goes back to what we were having a conversation between me and Lara, Wilma. How do we tell who's who? Great difficulty unless you've got good intelligence of those people travelling across Europe. Russia has always had a long historic involvement with Syria, very close ties between the two countries, because America would have blanket bombed the whole country if it hadn't been for Russian objections to this. Russia's intelligence in Syria is far more advanced than the United States. They've got greater connections with the Assad government. Could Russia defeat ISIL in Syria? I'll have to leave that to them to judge. They know their capabilities. But will Russia have a good relationship with the Assad government? Yes, they will continue to do so, because Syria is a real block between Russia and the West, culturally and politically, that they want to keep Syria on side. Will Russia launching raids in Syria cause more people to come here? The mercenaries will come here, as has been reported. Will it cause the other opposition groups to join with ISIL and spread around Europe to cause destruction? More extremists coming through? Potentially, yes. It's just how many of them, who are they?
Are the airstrikes from Russia, are they the right thing to do?
I think America would have done them if it still had the support to do so. Are they the right thing to do? For Russia, yes. For the rest of the world,
no.
That's different. Because, as you say, this goes back to the refugee migrant crisis we were talking about just now. If you destroy where people are living, they will move to somewhere else. And will they be more extreme after their lives being blown apart? Quite potentially, yes, because they've gone from living in somewhere where they were comfortable or at least settled to somewhere that's just been blown out, and they're moving now. They'll carry their more extremist extreme headset with them because they've just experienced attempted murder by another state. If they carry that into Eastern Europe and across to Western Europe, eventually to Calais, to this shores, they will bring with them bad feelings against the West, because we were the ones that started to bomb Syria and we still are running sorties into Iraq and up into Syria. They may well look at us as a problem.
But the West actually says that Russia has been bombing opposition groups and rebels, not just IS targets.
Again, it comes down to the Assad government will be safe if Russia is bombing Syria, because Russia may well bomb opposition groups, because Russia wants Assad to stay in power, which is where it disagrees with a lot of people in the West who have said that they would like to see the Assad government fall, hoping they can get a Western proxy government into Syria, because that just extends the Western governments further and further east. Still this kind of Cold War mentality about having to push the Russians back, so take over their countries and put in a Western government in there will give us greater influence in the region. You can only push it so fast, Wilma.
Will the problem in Syria ever be resolved? Will it be the same as Libya? I mean, are we seeing Syria becoming another Libya, where we have two opposing forces governing the same country?
As in Iraq, where you've got the Sunni and the Shia, that's still going on. We just don't hear about it that much because there's more recent traumas going on around the world. It seems to be wherever the West has intervened in the last 40, 50 years, the different factions in their countries now can fight out their disagreements rather than just being ensconced in a similar country with a strong government. That can no longer happen, Wilma.
We'll have to move quickly now.
Sure.
And let's go to the Conservative Party conference. GPs are going to be offered a voluntary contract to provide 7-day-a-week cover for patients. But the British Medical Association is saying that the workforce is very little. They need more nurses, they need more doctors, and the current workforce they have are absolutely worked out.
I completely agree with you, Wilma. So I was saying it's a voluntary contract, is that the Conservatives trying to get the staff in there without facing up to the BMA. I completely agree with your comments earlier about the question, Wilma. If you want more people to staff a service over 7 days instead of 5, you're going to have to pay more people, employ more people. You're going to have to train more nurses or increase the number of migrants coming here to staff the NHS on those.
There are so many cuts. He's not thinking of paying more money because he's saying there will be cuts to tax credits and the cuts will go ahead.
Again, this is the problem I have with this proposal. The proposal I agree with. We live in a 24-hour society, so therefore the hospitals and all the public services should be 24/7. But no local councils are open 7 days a week. The NHS isn't open 7 days a week. The bin men don't collect 7 days a week. Nothing is 7 days a week. I think David Cameron needs to look at our country, our culture in this country, and work with that. Otherwise, you're trying to force everyone's minds in different ways. And I think that's a battle he will not win, Wilma.
What do you think, Lara?
I agree with you. I think it's quite a potent subject which you said, point you make. Not everything is open 7 days a week. But at the same time, these are people's lives, and we need to be able to access medical assistance as we can. I fell ill a few months back, and sitting in the waiting room in the emergency room I waited for hours, I'll be honest with you, before I got seen. And it's not on, and it's not okay to do so. So I agree with that we do need to have the NHS open and GPs open for a long time. It's the issue of how to fund it. And the truth is, I think we need to look at the budget full stop and to reassess that budget and see where are we spending and where do we not need to be spending. And it comes down to all the budgets, really assess it and say, are we overspending here? Could we shift that spend somewhere else? But I think, as you said, it's a true point. Not everything is open 7 days a week.
We have to round up. I was just about to ask you, where do you think we are overspending? But we'll talk about that some other time. Thank you so much, Lara.
Thank
you for coming on the programme. And thank you, Brian.
It's been great to be here.
Well, this is Talking Politics. Today we've been looking at the refugee crisis. We're expecting 1.5 million refugees in Germany this year. That's what German Chancellor and the German media has reported. And also GPs will be open 7 days a week. What do you think about this? You can send emails to talkingpolitics@loveworldtv.co.uk. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of our programs.